Hi, I'm James McGuire, editor of Datamation, and our topic today is enterprise applications. We'll be talking about on-premise apps, cloud-based apps, security, compliance. To talk about that, we've got four great experts, all four of whom are my editorial colleagues here at Quinn Street. With us is Chris Primesberger, editor of Features and Analysis at eWeek. Hello to you, Mr. Primesberger.
Hi, James. Good to talk to you.
And I know you're very much a man about town in Silicon Valley. You get down there a lot.
Well, I live here, so I consort with people socially and in business fashion every day.
Also with us is Eileen Faratek, editor-in-chief of CIO Insight and Baseline. Hello to you, Eileen.
Hi, James. How are you today?
Good, good. I know you're based in New York City, correct?
That's correct.
How's the weather in New York this week?
Snowing, and ice.
Okay. It's sunny out here in California, not to
that's
rub it in
right.
or anything.
Rub it in.
Also with us is Ann All, editor of Enterprise Apps Today. Hello to you, Ann.
Hi, James.
With the name of the publication, Enterprise Apps Today, I think you should be able to contribute to our conversation today, to be sure.
I definitely hope I can.
Also is John Pilato, major person in tech publishing, editor-in-chief of eWeek. Hello to you, John.
Good morning, James. How are you today?
Pretty darn good, actually. And I want the four of you to know we do have our sound effects. We've got our applause sound effects, and we've got a rim shot in case anybody needs it. Just keep me posted on that.
Why do I feel like this is a talk radio show with pictures?
At enterprise applications, it's kind of an interesting moment right now. We're making a once-in-a-generation shift to the cloud as companies migrate to the cloud. But, of course, those on-premise legacy apps aren't going to be going anyplace anytime soon. They'll be with us. So what that means is companies are really in this position where they're sort of handling two different worlds, a foot in both worlds. So, Chris, how do they handle that? The cloud apps and the on-premise apps. How does that work for them?
It's complicated. I mean, companies have been using the server-based apps for over a generation. A lot of them, the companies that have been around that long, and people like to use what they're used to using and what they're comfortable using. And with the shift now to mobile devices and mobile apps being enterprise apps becoming mobile on devices, there's a different form factor, a different way to use these apps, and some companies are slow to make the change. But that's where the trends are going. As new millennial employees move into the workforce, millennials meaning anybody born basically from 1980 on, they're used to computers. They're used to using them every day. They're used to chatting every day. They're used to video. They're used to immediacy. And those factors have to be baked into new applications for enterprise, or productivity is going to lag. And companies are struggling now with making that changeover.
John, what's your sense of the interplay between the cloud-based apps and the legacy apps?
Well, I think that obviously a lot of companies have moved applications to the cloud. They're experimenting with applications. They're implementing applications in the cloud, but of enterprises, large and small, that are retaining on-premise because they're comfortable with it. They remain reluctant to move mission-critical applications and customer data to the cloud because they don't want their data to be off-site. They're concerned about the security of these applications, the cloud applications. So this is a continuing issue. For example, Quinn Street's Enterprise Applications Survey found that only 27% of enterprise finance are delivered via the cloud, while only 32% of human resource applications are cloud-based. So, certain applications, core business applications, remain to a great degree on-premise, and it's going to take a lot to really convince these businesses that it's safe to move to the cloud.
And what's your sense? Are these two worlds integrating with each other, the cloud-based apps and the on-premise apps? I mean, do they play well together?
Well, I think integration can be a kind of a sticky point for enterprises. That's always been the case with software.
And we may have lost Anne.
Oops.
Looks like somewhere the interwebs between here and Kentucky may have said, "Hey, that's a lot of data for us to carry." Earth to Anne. Are you with us, Anne?
She's frozen in time and space, James.
I'll tell you what. I'll check with her, and she may need to rejoin us. For the time being, we'll move onward, and hopefully she can join us in a little while.
Yeah, good idea.
Interesting, about the world of enterprise apps. I mean, one of the things that is really obviously very much influencing enterprise apps is the world of mobile. I mean, I think it was, venture capitalist Mark Andreessen who very famously said, software is eating the world. I think that mobile is eating, software is eating everything, really. It's really changing everything. So how is the move to mobile influencing the world of enterprise apps? Eileen, I know this is a topic that's close to you. What's your sense of that?
It's amazing because when you think about it, customers, employees, business partners all want mobile apps, and it's becoming a situation where there are so many out there now. One research that we posted on Baseline said that paid mobile apps will grow from 11 billion in 2014 to 14 billion in 2017. So, you're facing this enormous influx of apps that the IT managers have to deal with. One of the most important things with customers is this whole customer experience. Another survey that we posted talked about how when they asked IT executives how they thought their customers were happy with their mobile experience that the company had provided, 67% of them thought it was great. When they asked the customers, only 47% of them were happy with it. So there's obviously a disconnect there between the kinds of mobile applications we're providing. Then when you get to the, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, when we get to the side of the employees, you have this whole BYOD thing and the security issues, and so many of these apps now. A study showed that 97 out of 100 Android apps have been hacked last year, and 87 out of Apple apps were hacked.
Wow,
some surprising numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, James, I don't think we really explained that Quinn Street, our publisher, has come out with some new research this week, and the topic is what we're talking about. The title of the research report is 2015 Enterprise Application Outlook to SaaS or Not to SaaS, and that's what we're talking about. We're citing some of the statistics from that pretty deep research project that we'll be writing about on eWeek and other publications shortly.
Yeah, one of the interesting stats from that is that it shows that as companies move to the cloud, the apps that are moving to the cloud first are, of course, the newer apps. There's an interesting number about the mobile device management apps. Looks like 43% of respondents are running MDM apps, but more than half of those are in the cloud. So those newer apps are definitely moving to the cloud a lot faster. But we're talking about mobile, we're talking about BYOD. I mean, I think that's it's a complicated world when you talk about bring your own device and how that influences apps. I think companies have really struggled with that. And a few years ago they were saying no, don't bring your own device to work. Now they're saying they've kind of thrown up their hands and saying, well, we're going to have to deal with this. John, what's your sense of the BYOD movement and how it refers to enterprise apps?
Well, there's no doubt that enterprise business workers are coming to the office with all kinds of devices, smartphones, tablets. They've forced the IT department to support these apps by fiat, and now that they have them, they want to be accessing applications via their mobile devices. They expect to have interfaces that allow them to do business through their phones. They want to update databases. They want to check out reports, enter data, update sales reports, everything that a business professional would expect to do. So the IT department is in the position of having to find the most efficient way to do that, and I think that cloud applications I think they're much more adaptable to that rather than trying to retrofit, say, on-premise applications to do the same thing. So I certainly think that the BYOD trend is contributing to the move to to cloud applications.
Mm-hmm.
I'm finding, James, too, having talked to somebody just the other day about this here in the Valley, is that companies have, like you say, they've kind of thrown up their hands on the BYOD. Employees are going to bring whatever device that is comfortable for them to use to get the job done. And so what companies are doing in place of a stringent, policed kind of an approach to this, they're just saying, okay, let's make it granular. We're going to do our email, we're going to do chat, we're going to do maybe one other app, and we're going to put those into virtual private networks, or we're going to have those directly connected to our servers in some way, and we're not going to use the cloud. We're going to use a direct connection. I'm finding out that companies are thinking about using that until such notice, until the trend turns around so that everything is controlled a lot better. That's what they're doing right now, is they're breaking it down into apps.
What about the issue of, I'm sorry, go ahead, Eileen. Yeah.
No, the problem is that they may say you can only use these apps, but then the employees come back and have their own, and a lot of companies don't really have a very strong BYOD policy. And if what we found is that even when they have one, a lot of employees don't even know about it, or they think it's not important. And that's one of the critical issues is you've got to have a policy that makes sense, that covers apps as well as devices.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the related issues is I think, Gartner put out a report that said companies are going to be moving to having their own enterprise app store, so that they're curating apps. It's not only obviously their own apps, but apps that are also available publicly. But these are the apps you can use in an attempt to kind of control that in the workplace.
Yeah.
What about the issue of security and enterprise apps? I think that I talk with a lot of IT experts, and in terms of the cloud, ironically, the cloud in many ways may be safer than in-house because we hear month after month about breaches, but we don't hear that many breaches in terms of cloud vendors. John, what's your sense of security in the world of enterprise apps?
Well, I think it's kind of like there's a conflict going in terms of what businesses feel is really secure and the security that the cloud services can actually provide. Obviously, the cloud services have built up huge infrastructures to support big applications, to support many customers, and they've put a lot of thought and effort into building security into their platforms. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're absolutely bulletproof, but I think that they could probably safely say that their infrastructures are safer and have been designed with security in mind to a greater degree than, say, the average business network. And this is something that I think businesses have to really learn, have to take it on faith, or at least be willing to try it. But I think that the surveys tend to show that small to mid-sized businesses tend to be slower to migrate to cloud applications, mainly because they're concerned about security. And this is counterintuitive, mainly because the smaller businesses don't have they have fewer resources. They don't really have a strong security infrastructure in place, and it might make more sense for them to move at least some of their applications to the cloud. That doesn't mean they have to go, with both feet in, but it would they could probably take advantage of certain improvements in security infrastructure.
Anne, I see you are back with us.
I am back, and I have to apologize. I'm telecommuting, and I'm unhappy with my home internet service provider right now. They shall remain nameless. They spend a lot of money on advertising, and
one of those.
My internet connection. Well, my internet connection dropped off, so I do apologize. I'm sorry.
Send them a very strongly worded email, Anne.
I will try. You can actually watch them on YouTube and see how well their customer service typically performs. But maybe I'll give it a shot.
And talking about security, I know compliance is a subject that you cover a lot. How does that relate to enterprise apps?
I do. Well, I think again, if you're specifically if you're talking about the cloud, that still is kind of one of the bugaboos for organizations, particularly those in really heavily regulated industries like healthcare and financial services. And they just want to make sure that they're going to fulfill all their regulatory requirements. And unfortunately, sometimes with software as a service providers, their terms can be a bit ambiguous. And it's really important that you just vet the heck out of your vendors. You want to always insist on things like an annual audit by a third party. If you have specific requirements that you must meet, like HIPAA, you need to make sure that's addressed in your audit. It's always a good chance to do an on-site visit if that's at all possible. You should insist on best practices like data encryption. Even if that isn't specifically required, you need to look for providers that will go above and beyond the basic requirements. It's a good idea if you are working in a specific vertical to look for providers that have familiarity and experience working with those verticals. So it's just something that needs to be top of mind because, again, you're sort of entrusting part of your business to a third-party provider, and you want to make sure that third-party provider keep you, won't get you in any regulatory problems and will help you fulfill your requirements.
A lot of good stuff. Companies will have many cloud instances they're not even aware of because certain divisions will use the credit card to have to launch a cloud instance, and then the bills roll in. The company didn't even know that. And in a sense, shadow IT has really helped the movement to cloud in an odd kind of way. Eileen, your sense of the role of shadow IT in enterprise applications?
Yeah, it's become a huge issue in the enterprise, and IT's been fighting it for a while now, and I think they're finally starting to realize that it's got to be cooperative. You can't beat it down. So what you want to do is try and work with them to control it. In the case of cloud, if IT's finding a cloud vendor, they're going to really look into it very carefully. If they're looking into apps, they're going to check it out. But if you have a marketing department or a sales department, may not have the technical expertise or know what to look for in an app or a cloud vendor. In fact, in the Quinn Street survey, one of the things that came up was the fact that when they're working together, they can decide that IT realizes that the line of business users should be deciding what apps they want, but IT should be involved in evaluating them and acquiring them so that you can make sure that all these security issues are taken care of as well as all the administrative stuff that goes into it.
Chris, what do you see out in the field in terms of shadow IT? Is it the great bugaboo out there, or people kind of dealt with it these days?
No, Eileen's right. It's definitely a huge problem for IT because they don't have control. And the more and more control, as we know, of IT is going into non-IT hands, whether it's the marketing department, whether it's the financial HR department, because of the agility and the easy access of cloud apps. People are doing their own thing a lot. IT has lost control of this. Shadow IT is part of it. And shadow IT means, if you're not hooked up with Salesforce, but your individual salespeople have their own Salesforce accounts, for example, they're keeping track of their accounts in something that's not within the corporate realm, and that's shadow IT. And again, some of those numbers, some of that money, perhaps is not being accounted for by IT and by the company itself. It can get really worrisome. And to go up and for an IT person or somebody in line of business to go up and do a workaround to solve a problem that the company doesn't have available in its own app store, so to speak, it's just becoming more and more common. And some real issues can come out of that, and most of the issues are security related.
So if you would give advice to a company in terms of what is the most important factor in choosing or selecting an enterprise application, what would it be? And I think actually the Quinn Street research has an interesting input in this, and that what companies themselves say is ease of use counts more than anything. I mean, you think it might be cost, you think it might be feature set, but no, it's actually ease of use, which says to me that companies don't want their IT support staff to be doing a lot of hand-holding to the folks in the cubicle. So ease of use is really one of the most important factors. But Chris, I know this is an area you specialize in. What is the most important thing in terms of choosing an enterprise app?
Yeah, it's will they use it? The employees won't use it if it's not intuitive, simple, and easy to utilize on a daily basis. I mean, Steve Jobs was talking about this 30 years ago. That's what he was all about. That's what Apple's all about. It's all about the user. The interface is super, super important. A lot of companies have taken a number of years to come to that conclusion. That's why cloud apps, most of them are very simple to use. That's why shadow IT is happening. It's because these things are easier to use than many enterprise apps. And easy is a big red button in one company's advertising campaign, but people use that button an awful lot. That is definitely the most important thing when it comes to a mobile app, whether it's enterprise or personal. Easy to use and reliable to use.
I want that big red button. I like those easy buttons. They help me quite a bit. John, what would you point to as a key factor in choosing an enterprise application? What matters to companies, or what should matter to companies?
Well, I think it's utility. What fits best on cloud now? I think that the research has shown that while necessarily willing to put really their most critical applications, say like HR, ERP, accounting, governance, risk management on the web, they are willing to put more of the new generation apps, customer service, sales, anything that has to do with sales, marketing, that'll go up on the online first, and it becomes a matter for the industry, the cloud service providers, to really convince enterprises, especially small and medium-sized businesses, that they should try out applications that are out there in some of these critical areas, such as ERP. I think that ERP is perhaps one of the next applications that are moving out there, and there's a couple of companies out there that are doing this in this area.
Mm-hmm. And thoughts on what makes an enterprise app a good choice for a company, or why companies would choose one over the other?
Sure. Again, I think that the ease of use that we're talking about is important. That's your sexy stuff, the ease of use and the mobility. I think, though, you do still need to consider the not so sexy stuff, which for some reason I got to discuss. I don't know why putting me with non-sexy makes sense, actually, but that would be things like compliance and things like security and things like integration. Those are important. Again, if you don't think about them up front as you're kind of buying and deploying apps, you're going to have to think about them later. If you're either going to pay me now or pay me later. And I think kind of the key to having that happen, I know we've talked a lot about shadow IT, it's really building this sense of teamwork between your business, your lines of business, and your IT organization. Try to get those folks together early to really discuss their requirements, get those business requirements squared away and really get them discussing these type of things. Really, it should be possible for them to work together and to come up with a short list that satisfies both the sexy and the non-sexy. Usually, I think what we find, and this was certainly borne out in the Quinn Street Enterprise Research, and Chris mentioned it as well, the lines of business are usually making that final decision, but they should be doing so with input from IT so that they do, again, satisfy these things like compliance and integration, and then they will, those apps are going to work better, they're going to run more smoothly.
I mean, you're right about the compliance. I mean, it's certainly not a sexy topic, but when legal issues arise, it's really nice to have compliance taken care of. It's sort of like something that sits there. When you do it well and it's not a problem, it doesn't seem to matter, but suddenly it can matter a whole lot at some point.
Yeah, it's like having well, go ahead.
Lawsuits aren't sexy.
It's like having
very much so. Losing lawsuits aren't sexy, yeah, for sure.
No.
Yeah, it's not sexy to have to worry about a disaster recovery system, for example, for your IT system. But man, if there's a disaster, you need it to be recovered, or your business is going to be out. So it's the same kind of thing, exactly.
Right.
Yep, exactly.
Well, also, I think we have to consider is consolidation of apps, because with everybody, again, bringing in shadow IT, if all departments go off and one wants this type of a, let's say, not an ERP system, some kind of analytics system, let's say. Somebody wants this one, the sales department wants one, HR wants a different one, then IT's got to manage all of this. So there needs to be a central location where they can say, all right, well, what are your, like as Ann said, what the requirements are and what's going to work for the enterprise, not just what's going to work for you and your team. So it's going to require a lot of cooperation between the various groups in an enterprise.
And James, could I make one more point, James?
Please do.
Another reason, again, to really kind of work and coordinate early and often is that now today, with data being more important, you're going to want, again, back to the integration piece, you want to be able to more easily share data between your applications to do things like get a 360-degree view of your customer. You're going to provide them better service. And again, it's very important that they interplay. And a lot of that has to do with kind of the growing importance of data to almost every business. I'm certainly customer-oriented ones, but all businesses now.
To jump onto that, and real quickly too, this is why so many large organizations and medium-sized organizations are now creating the position of Chief Data Officer at the company. They realize how important and how much the crown jewels are involved and are instantiated in companies' data. And that Chief Data Officer works closely with the CIO and the CTO and then the rest of the actually all of the C-level execs to be sure that that is safe, all the data is safe, accessible, and backed up. And more companies are realizing that's important. We'll be having a big story. I actually have been working on a story on that at eWeek for a while. It should be publishing in the next couple of weeks.
The idea of the chief data officer?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I mean, then becomes what is the relationship between the chief data officer and the chief information officer? Those two have got to really get along. But I guess it's a discussion for a different day, perhaps.
The CDO does a lot of the things the CIO really doesn't want to do or has time to do.
Yeah.
So it's basically
Sorry.
basically cleansing the data and getting it ready to go for operation is what it is.
Well, it brings into the whole analytics area, and with all the analytics software programs that are out there now. And one of the things with that, I mean, the security, I mean, that's pretty good. But when you think about how trying to look at these things when you're on the train and you got your little smartphone and you're trying to analyze something, there again it brings into the whole not only use but design of mobile apps that you can look at them on a very small screen, a very complicated thing like an analytics report, and make sense of it. And I think analytics is going to be a huge issue in the next couple of years. And how do you make that accessible on a mobile device?
Yeah, there are a lot of companies trying to do that right now.
It's interesting. I think it was Citrix a few years back introduced an app that an administrator can use to log into their data center through their smartphone. So in a sense, the smartphone is going to be this admin panel for the infrastructure. Go figure. So the chief data officer is going to be doing their job on the train home using their smartphone. Interesting. I want to see that. Yeah. So, if the four of you kind of boil it all down to kind of a key takeaway, what would you say to companies about, what they should be thinking about in terms of enterprise applications? And I want to ask the four of you. My own would be something along the lines of, I think the enterprise applications market at this point really is a buyer's market because there are so many choices out there, and I think in the years ahead there's only going to be a greater explosion of choices in terms of enterprise applications. So, when you're going out there shopping and selecting, realizing that you are in the driver's seat, and what that means too is you can use that position of power to negotiate, maybe some sort of a licensing agreement, maybe it's an uptime thing, something like that, anything. But realize, as a buyer in the world of enterprise apps, you are the most sought after person. John, what might be your key takeaway for companies?
Well, my feeling is that cloud services are really going to have to do a better job of convincing, especially small and mids of all sizes, that the big apps, the critical in-house apps like human relations, ERP, accounting, governance, risk management, that it's safe to come out into the cloud, and they're secure as well as economical alternatives to on-premises applications. And the most convincing form of security guarantees, performance level agreements, and price incentives, as you mentioned, to get them to move to the cloud with confidence. And they should really look for a chance to survey potential customers' on-premise installations and show how they can perhaps reduce their on-premise infrastructure and costs by moving to the cloud. And I think, perhaps it will take some strategic projects to really convince some of the companies that are really kind of entrenched in their on-premise applications that the cloud provides a viable alternative.
Mm-hmm. Eileen, your final takeaway for folks, what's most important to be thinking about?
At this point, I think that security is critical, and key to that is coming up with a BYOD policy that makes sense for the corporation. So that means involving the line of business managers as well as IT and senior management, because senior management has to support it. They've got to say, this is our policy. Whatever it is, you've got to follow it, and everyone's got to be on board with it. They need to be educated. Employee education is important because a lot of employees don't realize the risks they take when they're accessing data on their mobile devices. So it's got to be a united front and create something that will work for everyone in the enterprise.
You mean if I have corporate documents on my smartphone, I leave my smartphone in the back of the cab, that could be a problem? Who knew? And what is
you're getting a lot of millennials coming into the workforce, and these 20-somethings, some don't really have a sense of privacy that us more mature people do. You got to think about that too.
And what's your key takeaway for folks about enterprise apps?
Well, I think I tipped my hand earlier and kind of talking about the importance of the IT organizations working together with their business counterparts. IT, I think, needs to recognize that the cloud is a way to give their business users some of the flexibility and ease of use and agility that they've been wanting for all of these years and clamoring for. And by the same token, I think that business needs to recognize that IT is going to be those partners that can actually help them get the applications that will meet all of those needs for ease of use and functionality and a cool looking interface. But again, it will also mean that it can integrate well with their existing architecture. They're secure. They're going to satisfy their regulatory requirements, and they can kind of help them zone in on their business requirements. And it's just very important to work together as a team, I think.
And of course, the various divisions might have some disagreement about what's most important. I mean, legal might want compliance. The office workers might want ease of use. So there might be some politicking going on there.
Yeah, definitely. But again, I think this is kind of a rare opportunity for IT to kind of help to step in. Again, they have a very high-level view of the organization and kind of the architecture of the organization and kind of the overall makeup. And it's kind of an opportunity for them to step in and help mediate and, again, ensure that everybody's happy.
Chris, your key takeaway, what matters most about enterprise applications?
Yeah, anticipating your question, James, I have a couple of notes here.
You're a step ahead of me.
We didn't talk about this point, but I want it to be a takeaway anyway, and it has to do with innovation. I write about innovation a lot in startups at eWeek, and this has to do with developing an enterprise app. And when you you're a company that needs to find that function, that connection between you and your customers, or you and your value chain, what you need to do is you should really realize that it should not be a start from scratch project, because there are already so many good apps and components out there in the open source area that you can draw from to build upon. That's what it's all for. That's what it's all aimed at. The whole open source community is aimed at applications that help people. So if you find one that's close to what you want, take it and modify it to fit your own business requirements. And then the key thing is, remember to give back as much as you can to the community from where you acquired that code. And you can share and share alike on this, and then you can also put your own proprietary secret sauce into it. But that's what it's all about. You don't need to start from scratch. Use the community, build on it, and go from there.
And I think the key point there is to give back. I think a lot of the newer companies, especially some of the startups, are leveraging open source.
Yeah,
they're not always dumping that code back into the code base as some of the legacy players are. I've heard complaints about that.
It's easy to say. It's really easy to say that we would not have the world we have today without open source software. You certainly wouldn't have the internet the way we have it today, and all the mobile apps that we have wouldn't exist without the open source community.
It's true. It is true. So that's a lot of good stuff. I appreciate the expertise from the four of you. I think I'm going to give us all a round of applause. I think that's a self-congratulatory applause. Why not? And I'll send out the link. We can all tweet it. And I thank you very much.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
James.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
James.